teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. Pleasure to have you here as always. Today we are looking at Chantal's live. She's decided to grace us with her presence. I think it's called Where I've Been or something very similar. It'll be in the title. Now I am going to do this recap style today because she just had her avatar up for the most part, so there's no real need to have the video up. Now let's address before we start the idea that she's a lie, because rule one, Chantal lies. There are different possibilities as to where she's been. She's claiming sick the whole time. A lot of people think she's been on a visa hop. I personally was in two minds with this because technically she doesn't need to visa hop for another couple of weeks, 3 weeks. But there were lots of signs that she had been planning to travel. She had bought suitcases, things like that, and she'd been talking about places. And she'd also tried to drop the red herrings of, no, we're going to do it in November, which quite by coincidence would also be 3 months after this, just in time for the next visa hop. Now, the fact is, both of those eventualities are equally likely and could in fact both be true. She could have travelled and then gotten sick. She could have gotten sick, had to travel anyway, and then she's still sick now. But you're going to hear me go back and forth a lot during this recap. You're going to hear me say things like, okay, so why haven't you been the doctor, implying she's in Kuwait, or even if she wasn't in Kuwait, to be completely honest, you can access healthcare elsewhere. And you're also going to hear me explaining or justifying why something she said can't be true, implying that she is traveling. The truth is, I don't actually know, and it doesn't actually matter, because one thing we do know is the day she returned from her last trip, which means even if she hasn't traveled now, she would have to visa hop by the end of this month. So whether now or 3 weeks from now, the truth will tell. And while I actually would have been inclined to say, no, I think this is a red herring, I think she hasn't actually traveled yet, the fact that she was going out of her way to deny it while not offering proof just makes me feel more like she's lying. She very much overplayed her hand here. They both did, in fact, because we could not escape Salah. So let's go through it, but I do know I'm going back and forth a lot because, frankly, both are equally plausible. So she claims she's been sick, she's coughing, she's tired of being in bed, she doesn't know what's causing it, even though the symptoms, according to her, are very similar to the symptoms she had but a month ago. She says getting sick with diabetes is a whole nother thing, and that's not really a surprise. As I said, she's been through this recently, and she said she spoke to her aunt, who said she cannot stay in bed, it will just make it worse. Her aunt has some experience with this. Apparently it started July 1st, which would have been Canada Day, which, remember, she had already been asked, will you come on for Canada Day, and been quite evasive about it and said, oh, maybe the 2nd, which had led to the speculation that they might be traveling early to begin with. And she said she started to get violent chills. Now, last time she had this, she said she had a UTI and a kind of kidney infection. Given that she seems to be selling us the same thing here, I went and looked because she was talking about having a cough and having cold-like symptoms and things like that, what the symptoms of kidney infection were, and the NHS website said this. So you can feel feverish, shivery, sick, and have pain in your back or side. She does say sciatica a lot, maybe it's connected to this. And you may also have UTI symptoms like needing to pee, pain or burning, and smelly or cloudy pee. It did also say, and bear in mind she had this barely a month ago, that if you have underlying conditions, the way Chantal has practically dozens of at this point, you could become infected more frequently. So this might even be a case, if we do accept she's sick, this may even be a case of the old sickness never got fully cured and it's still with her. So she says she was so cold, she's had cold-like symptoms, she's had a lot of nausea. She took anti-sickness tablets, but again, she hasn't seen a doctor, and she'll probably go tomorrow because it was about 3 in the morning when she was doing this live stream. I don't understand why she hasn't already seen a doctor, because if she's saying that it's like what she had before, then she knows what she's got to do. She knows it's not going to get better by itself, and she needs to see a doctor to get antibiotics. But also she's had antibiotics quite recently, so I don't know exactly how it would go in terms of prescribing her, but she may just be at the position where not having them is more dangerous than the risk of having too many of them. But we're not quite there yet. She's still saying she doesn't know what it is. Had a fantastic sentence come out of her mouth. I was trying to just clip it and then realised I was having a lot of trouble with my built-in screen recorder. But she says, I don't think I have food poisoning, no, as a response to a suggestion in chat. But she goes, I don't think I have food poisoning, no. I think I had some kind of food poisoning. And I was like, sorry, what? Sorry? You think you have the thing you've just said you don't have? And this was like the next sentence. There wasn't time or space between these. I don't know what she thought she was saying. But if anyone's wondering, it's moments like that that make us think she lies. Because it went from, no, it wasn't that, to, oh, I think it might have been that. That sounds more plausible than what I was going to say. And then mentioning it again later. Like, she's never really learned that the truth doesn't change. Now, she does admit that her eating had been horrible before she got sick. I don't remember the last thing she ate for us before she got sick, but I imagine she was also eating some things behind the scenes. And she's just like, oh, what was I thinking? I really don't know, because I do think she was genuinely very sick before. Like, and when she was sitting there praying to God and begging him to forgive her and give her another chance, she apparently had this epiphany then, but she never actually learns from it. So she's been in bed for 4 days. P is barbecue sauce adjacent again. She's taking 3 pills a day for her diabetes. I think her diabetes medicine is called Janumet or something like that, but she's meant to have 2 a day. And she claims her doctor, who she's saying she hasn't seen, told her she could go up to 3 if she needed to, which, according to people who know more about this on the internet than I do, apparently is not a thing you do. But despite taking 3 pills a day instead of 2, her blood sugar, she mentions a bit later, is currently 15. At the moment, she just says, oh, it's been really high. And yet, 4 days into this newest bedbound arc, she has not been the doctor. Now, let's just get a change in medication, shall we? She decides that the cure, or the help, is going to be at about sunrise. She wants to try and go outside and walk around. Because apparently walking around is a good way to lower your blood sugar. It just gets higher when you're bedbound. I don't know, could be perfectly true. I've got no idea. But again, if you are sick the way you were sick before, why would you not seek the same treatment as before? Because you know it made you better. And getting it sooner is likely going to make you feel better sooner. Why would you wait on this? You've already experienced it. Which then opens up the conversation to, okay, for what reason would she maybe not be able to go to the doctor? Is it simple embarrassment that here, only a month later, she's showing up to what would be a clinic or an emergency situation, saying, oh yeah, I saw you last month, I didn't do any of the things you told me to do, and hey, I'm sick again? Is it about you not wanting to rock up to the medical services with your very much not a civil ID? Choices. It could be either, it could be neither. But the less sense your actions make, the more questions it allows to arise. Apparently, she has had time to think and is realizing that everything is serious. I'm going to give that about as much attention as it deserves, given how many realizations on this she has had leading up to this moment. Because logic would dictate perhaps by now she would have done something about it, or at least attempted something about it, but you would be wrong. She says she starts to feel better and then forgets about her problems, calls it delusion and denial. Well, we're on the same page there. Tells us, I didn't need this level of detail, but that the urine has like a slight burn, so it might be a UTI. Perhaps she didn't fully get better last time. And as I said, when I looked at the NHS stuff, chronic conditions can make you more prone to getting them. So a Bisa called Lynn asked this question, asking if they checked her last time after the meds, because in Lynn's experience, it took her 2 rounds to get rid of the same problem. And Foodie said, no, they didn't, because they didn't ask her for a follow-up, which would make sense if she was in kind of a clinic hospital-based GP situation type deal, rather than having her own GP that she follows up with. There's nothing wrong with accessing the hospital ones because it means you don't have to wait for appointments to be free. You can show up and just wait as long as it takes. I do that myself because it's more practical for me. But it does mean if you need continued care, you won't get it. But of course, on her tourist visa, they wouldn't really be looking to give her continued care anyway. She says she needs to go to the doctor again. Again, why would you wait this long? She does seem to have forgotten to keep coughing at this point. Like, she was coughing a lot, and then got talking and stopped. She reiterates that the stuff she was eating was very bad, very bad. I mean, I guess the little tantrum she had with us when she was just going to mukbang and screw us because we don't deserve interesting content, and she wants to vlog. I'm not saying that's interesting content, but she wants to vlog. It's a shame. Like, we had a gun to her head. I guess it hasn't really benefited her over the last few weeks. Who could have seen that coming? She says she can't keep complaining about her health and she has to start being more responsible. Buckle in, we've got a lot more of this live stream left. Oh, this was gross. She said she had days of boogers, built up, not in her nose, which is gross enough and I didn't need to know, but in the CPAP, and oh God. In the CPAP, because she'd been wearing it for days. She wants ice cold real apple juice, but she knows she can't drink it, and I swear to God, I thought she was going to say watermelon. I was mouthing it as she was speaking. Not that apple's particularly better, but seriously. Repsion comes into the chat to remind her about a message they sent her, and she goes to check it and then says, let me think, I'll get back to you, to whatever the message was. He had sent it through DMs on Insta, I think. She says that the doctor had told her if she didn't feel better to go back, which she didn't do because she did feel better. Because you remember, she got super scared and started eating actually healthy for a few days. Salah interrupts at this point to play a weird recording of a baby crying. I do not understand. There's a little bit of chat about the other mukbanger from Australia who's been producing really similar content to Chantal, and she calls Perfectly Imperfect a Twitter skank, I think it was, for noticing that Chantal had commented there, so Chantal deleted her comment. Someone asked for a video cooking things where she is, which I think was just a prompt to try and trap her into admitting that she had travelled. Chantal sounds quite irritated when she says, I'm going to have to cook something healthy, and then goes, what's super healthy? She then tells us for the first time, trust me, there were more, that she might go live if she goes for a walk later to have their support and I guess to prove where she was. She didn't actually do this. Salah is back and saying kimchi because somebody in the chat mentioned cabbage soup, and that also triggers Chantal to remember that she's supposed to be coughing, so she gives a few. Salah now insists on becoming part of the conversation, so we have to listen to his attempts to be funny and engaging. I do not enjoy the experience. Please go away. This is when Foodie says her sugars are 15 and she still hasn't eaten anything, so still no doctor though. 15 on 150% of the medicine and no food. Yeah, no? Doctor? No. Okay. She doesn't feel like eating anything. The chat suggests soup. She doesn't seem hugely enthusiastic. Ibiza, possibly a mod, I don't remember off the top of my head, called Melly, shows some form of basic sense and says, look, you should go get checked just in case it is ketoacidosis or something else that's serious. And Foodie's like, yeah, and mentions tomorrow again because it's the wee hours of the morning. And oh joy, Salah is suddenly mad. There is a certain amount of skill in taking something that's perfectly benign and turning it into an argument, but there we go. He goes, see, someone with a brain, referring to some comments that said, you know, oh, Chantal, I'm sorry you're feeling ill. Unlike the stupid haters, she is lying. Oh my God. Salah, my darling, if you were to go back, which I realize you can't because Chantal has deleted most of her stuff, but if you were to go back and to see how often we have said she's lying and she's actually turned out to be, you would understand why we say it. Salah says he's done with us. Oh, one, thank God, but two, done? Well, I'm shaking in my boots now. And they just both kind of scoff at the idea that she might be traveling, despite the fact that she's literally within weeks of needing to do so. And she's been mentioning travel, and she bought suitcases, and now she disappeared for a few days. Chantal says it's not unreasonable for me to be sick with all my health conditions, which is true and does sound a lot like she might have been thinking that out. What's the most plausible excuse I can give? And this is where it becomes, oh, you really do seem to be lying. And I know, like, outside of the default, well, of course she's lying, it's the only thing she does. They're both quite angry. And again, the best way I can think to describe it is sort of overplaying the incident. So Chantal mentions they think I'm not in Kuwait. And like I say, they both get very angry for something they claim is so ridiculous. If it's that ridiculous, surely it's worth laughing at, not getting angry about. Salah says, yes, my voice is recorded from a spaceship, sarcastically, like they didn't go to Thailand together. And like Chantal hasn't herself admitted that she took a trip to Qatar without telling us. Right in line with the suspicion of her travelling during one of her other visa hop windows. Salah says that we're assholes and that's how we get views, the dirty way. Those are some pretty big stones for the High Lord of the Glass House of scat porn and fetish religious content to be throwing. But the Lord is apparently not finished and has been reading Chantal's playbook of lies and misdirections, which is to say he pulls up the date of the 26th of June very quickly and then asks why people care. Chantal does not help by chiming in and saying it wouldn't take 5 days, that she would only not come online for 5 days if she were really sick or needed a break. While I do acknowledge her need for attention, bear in mind that it's currently Friday the 5th here. Friday and Saturday are the weekend, and this Sunday is a holiday because of Islamic New Year. We're going into the year 1446 on the Islamic calendar, so it's entirely possible that that could have delayed visa processing. But again, it's also entirely possible that she's sitting in her apartment baiting people, so don't get mad that you lie so much that everything sounds plausible. They could have gone a day or two ago, expected to be back quickly, and then found that there were delays in processing because of the upcoming holiday. They could have gone, got it processed, come back, and then she's been struck by illness as well. Or she could be about to travel in 3 weeks' time, and this is all just a game they're playing for views. But they're both digging in on why would we hide travel, and the fact that some people, myself included, got the dates wrong for her travel dates. I was thinking for quite a while that it was at the beginning of this month. Turns out it was actually at the end. Clearly we're all too obsessed, but we should all know the dates. But it does sound like they've been lining up a list of excuses for this. Salah is still mad and saying who gives a shit about how many visa runs, and laughing at the fact that nobody travels. Now, they know full well that the whole point about the visa run links back to her status and whether or not it's possible for them to be legally married. That's why it's a conversation. That's why it's always been a conversation. She can't be married on a tourist visa. She keeps hopping like she's on a tourist visa and having something happen every 3 months like she's on a tourist visa. So it's not absolutely implausible for us to discuss it when you seem to be repeating that pattern every time. But, you know, stay mad. However, as a follow-on point, I was not, in fact, born and raised in Oman, the country from which I am currently filming. But no, we're all zombies who don't travel, so what the hell do we know? Someone asked if she's a basic or fancy traveller. She says she won't pay for business class, but she prefers a decent hotel, and that she won't show the living room, but she'll show the beach later when she goes for a walk, which again, she did not do. Just to point out, it would be really easy to hand Salah the camera at this point and be like, hey babe, just turn the camera around, please. It wouldn't involve her at all. It wouldn't put her on film without her hijab. And she managed to take a picture of her food and put that up. There was no reason she couldn't just get the camera out of the room to save her modesty and then show the apartment and put all this to rest. That is not what they did. Chantal pulls up a picture making fun of FFG that she found on Twitter. She says it's funny and that she had a Twitter for a day to report everybody, but that Twitter doesn't care. And I guess DX and Kristen can breathe a sigh of relief from the totally real consequences Chantal was going to rain down upon them. Someone's trying to trip her up again, asks if she has good snacks in her hotel room, and she says she wishes they were traveling instead of sick, and that they're going to travel when it's colder. She had mentioned November to me, which would be conveniently another 3 months after this. But it did strike me as a bit of an odd time to be traveling, because actually from November to February, the Middle East is a gorgeous place to be. The weather is so nice. It's definitely a time to enjoy being in country. But Chantal just can't leave it alone and goes that step too far. And so she's kind of laughing and she wants to know what the chat's theories are. And I think she's just enjoying herself a bit too much here. She's like, I'm like, no, what do you think? Which is one of her tells when lying. What do they call it? Duper's delight? Is that the phrase? Like, if it's a lie, just leave it alone. But Chantal lies and then tells on herself. Someone asks, why would you fake being sick if you were traveling? And this reminds Chantal to cough. And she says, yeah. And I would presume so that next time they can fake taking a trip and say, no, look, I haven't left the country for 6 months. What are you talking about? There's a bit more chat, and then there's a sound of a cat meowing. And they say, see, that's Julia. What a coincidence that meow, which seems like 3 identical meows, comes mere minutes after someone says the cat doesn't make much noise, make her meow so we can hear her, and we don't hear her again before or after, even though she seems to be meowing pretty insistently. Also a complete coincidence that Salah literally walked into this live stream playing a recording on his phone, so I don't consider this proof. It could be wrong, it could not be, but it does not help that Chantal is like giggling through a fair bit of it, which makes me just think that her and Salah really think they're playing 3D chess right now. Chantal starts talking about food, and even though she's been going yuck and I haven't eaten for days and all food sounds disgusting, she ends up ordering a salad. There's some type of drama in chat about blocking or hiding messages or something. I found it a little hard to follow. Salah mentions the whole chat is talking about timed out comments. There's a lot of nothing taught, and then suddenly she's mad at FFG for having 3,000 in chat while saying she doesn't care. She orders the salad with tomato, apple, bell pepper, pumpkin, croutons, olives, and I think, oh yeah, Asian chicken. Sorry, I thought the list was finished there, and no, it kept going. Asian chicken, 2 types of lettuce, and cheese. If I felt really sick to my stomach and I had really high blood pressure and my doctor had said, hey, careful on the sodium, try not to eat white carbs and stay away from the cheese, I don't know if those are the ingredients I would have chosen, but I didn't order the salad. Salah is saying to the chat something about the warehouse for his job is private and secret, but he can show some of the markets he sells in. I thought we were going to get like a tour of the warehouse at one point when she first came to Kuwait, but I guess there was so much trouble about her status, they were like, nah, you stay out of there, thank you. People mention that this would be a possible consequence, and Chantal says, that she wishes her haters lived in Kuwait so she could get them sent to jail. Well, you had the opportunity when you were in Canada, you did not follow it up. Salah asks for new names for like a scented room spray, and that seems a dangerous game to play with chat. They go through some words that are more obviously connected to her. I quite like Chantal number 5, that suggestion, but there were others. We have a lot of absolutely nothing conversation. She makes fun of a reactor that exercises during her reacts, despite admitting to being in bed for the last 3 to 4 days and having filmed herself not being able to make it up a flight of stairs on more than one occasion. She's chosen to shame the reactor for having what sounds like an older exercise machine that she actually uses. I mean, it's a choice. Foodie salad is finally here. I forgot to mention this, but at some point I think she mentioned that she'd used Uber Eats. And actually, usually when she's in Kuwait, she uses Talabat. So that was another thing that was like, it could mean nothing. Uber Eats does exist here. But it's one of those things that just catches on in your brain at the same time. Like, you can, but why would you? She shows a very closely cropped picture in her salad, and she eats it very noisily on stream. Says she's gonna see us later and will take us on a walk. She doesn't. Okay, and that is the end of that live. It was 2.75 hours, something along those lines. I was watching the results for the UK election, so I was awake quite late last night / this morning. So it was fun to have two entirely different versions of insanity going on both sides. Okay, but I'm going to leave you there. I'll get this edited down and uploaded, and we will see if she goes live again. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.